harms the human, also the environment. What are the types of harmfulness? Are physical, chemical, biological harmfulness. Biological in the sense plants, reactive and toxic. Reactives are if some external agent assumed to be as reactive. Toxic is it can even cause death to the living organism. Flammable, explosive and corrosive. So what do you mean by hazardous wastes? Are if they have characteristics of these can cause danger. It either might danger the health or the environment separately or in contact with other substance. So in India, these are the following states. They are recycling the hazardous waste. Now, the hazardous waste characteristics. 4 major characteristics are there in hazardous waste. They are flammable, is the waste can catch fire. That is called flammable. The examples, in day-to-day life we are using this much of chemicals which are hazardous. It can harm ourselves or our environment. What are they? In day-to-day, even in household hazardous waste, you can see this example. Paints are example of hazardous waste. Thinners, waxes. Waxes will catch fire. If you ignite fire in a wax, it can catch fire and it can burn. So it has an ability to flame. That is why it is an example of flammable. Paints are some example. And waste oils. For lamps we use oils, petrochemicals. In petroleum industry we use crude oil. These crude oil waste have the capability of flammability. Next thing is corrosive. What do you mean by corrosive is it can slowly deteriorate the material as well as it can burn the skin. So these are the character of corrosiveness, such as rust removers. Next thing is reactive. Reactive means by adding some heat. You can add water or you can add some heat. If your temperature increases from 60 degree to 100 degree, then it might change its reaction. Example is toxic gases. When certain waste combined with water, it might harm the environment. Last thing is toxic. What are toxic characteristics? If some hazardous waste create death for human, then it is called a toxic waste. This is the first one. It's a character. If a material reaches 60 degrees centigrade, is called ignitability. Now we generally exist in 30 degree temperature or 40 degree temperature dry periods. What happens if you reach 60 degree temperature? The material will get burned. What are the example of that is alcohols. So one example, acetone, ethyl acetate, etc. are the example of ignitability. Next thing is oxidizers. If certain things want to catch fire, it needs oxygen, which are nitrates, perchlorates, bromates, etc. These are the hazardous material which might cause ignitability. And next thing is organic peroxide. So these character exhibit ignitability. Second thing is corrosivity. The metal corrodes nearby the seashore, it slowly starts to corrode. If your liquid has less than 2 is called strong acid. Less than 7 are called acid, but less than 2, if certain liquids are there, then it is called corrosive in nature, and more than 12.5. So up to 14 you can have pH. If pH level crosses 7, it is said to be base. So in base, you can see it is the strongest base. More than 12.5, it is strongest base. What happens? It might rate the corrosion of the metals of 6.35 mm per year. The material will slowly deteriorate. So this is one of the character. Around a temperature of 12 degrees centigrade is enough. What are the things that corrode? Hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid. These are all strong acids which has less than 2 of pH. This causes this kind of corrosion. And next thing is organic acid, formic acid and lactic. Where you have this lactic acid, In our digestive system, we have this lactic acid. This digests our food. It is less than 2. So it is highly corrosive, which we have in our digestive system. That is, the organic acid is an example. Bases are hydroxide solution and amines, etc. Next thing is reactivity. I have given you some example. Some metal is being heated to some temperature. When it is kept into this chemical and it burns. So this is called reactive. Certain wastes are reactive. This is the example of hazardous waste. What are the reactive materials? Which are sulfides and cyanides. In different temperature, it can catch the fire. Peroxiformous, water reactive materials. Sodium gets in contact with the water, then it starts to react. Same is an example for potassium, lithium, calcium carbide, etc. These are some of the examples of reactivity. The fourth one is toxicity. Toxicity is, you can see these are the example when humans consume the hazardous waste, these kind of effects they will incur. Abdominal pain, chill or low body temperatures will happen if you consume these kind of hazardous waste. You might feel weak, diarrhea might happen, etc. So these are the characteristics when humans consume hazardous waste. The example of toxic wastes are arsenic, barium, cardamom, etc. Transboundary movement. An example is if you want to transport the hazardous waste from one country to another, that is called transboundary movement. So any movement of hazardous waste from one jurisdiction to another country. Now, disposal. The hazardous waste, last thing what they can do is dispose. So they should not generally dispose the hazardous waste. Instead of disposal, what they can do is reuse, recycle, recovery, utilization, etc. These things they can do. So if the hazardous waste cannot reuse, cannot recycle, recovery they cannot do in the sense, then they can finally go for disposal. So petrochemical treatment, biological treatment, incineration and disposal in a secured landfill. So these are the things they can do. Now transboundary movement are available in Pollution Control Board. No import of hazardous waste from any country to India should be bought. So this is the first case. These rules are available in the Pollution Control Board. There should not be no import of hazardous waste. You should not take from any other country to our country. The importing of hazardous waste can be done only for these purposes. What are they? Be imported for recycling, for making some objects or materials. They can recover, reuse, utilization, co-processing, etc. For disposal in our country, the hazardous waste should not be taken. Third thing is hazardous waste of Part A, Schedule 3. They have given certain chemicals which it should not be transported from one country to the another. What are the chemicals which are hazardous waste scheduled in Part 3? If you are transporting from other country to India or from our country to other country, you should take a prior informed consent. There is a format of letter which you should submit to Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. If you are applying to that, then they will agree, so that after that you can transport this waste. Import of other waste, which is scheduled in Part B of Schedule 3, to be allowed with the permission. For Part A, you should priorly get consent. For Part B, if you inform before the transportation is sufficient. Part A, what are the things it consists? This is particularly for list of hazardous waste, which can either import or export from other country to here or here to other country. These are the following materials. Prior consent is required. So you can read it out. Description of hazardous waste, etc. So this is called Part B. These are other hazardous waste which does not require prior information or consent is required from Ministry of Environment Science. These are given in part B. You can see vessel number. They have given B. Now description of waste which are given here, such as thorium scrap, rare earth metals, etc. Some things are scheduled in part D of schedule 3 will be allowed as per procedure given in rule 13, and no import of hazardous waste in schedule 6. They have given some schedules from schedule 1 to schedule 8. In schedule 6, these hazardous waste should not be imported to our country, and the export of hazardous waste or other waste listed in India of part A, part B, schedule 3 and schedule 6 shall be permitted only if you get consent from Ministry of Environment and Forest. So this consent is required. Obviously, part 6 of hazardous waste should not be transported from one country to another. And last thing is, if import and export of hazardous and other waste scheduled in part 3, and if it is not there, if it is not indicated in part 3, then a written permission is required. This is the list of part D of other waste. They have listed without permission from Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate. These chemicals should not be, or hazardous waste should not be imported or exported. This is schedule 1. Now, I have given an example of what are the types of industries. Now, in this module, certain titles are given from textile industry, sugar, tannery, electroplating industry, etc. So, from each industries, they have given a type of hazardous waste. Generally, there is a common technology used in all types of industry. There they have highlighted what are the types of hazardous waste coming from an industry. Example, first process is petrochemical. From petroleum industry, what kind of waste or hazardous waste produced, which is given in the another column here. Now, what are the types of hazardous waste comes from petroleum industry? Furnace or reactor. From this kind of reactors, you can see there is debris, oil, sludge, emulsion, organic residues and alkali residues which are derived from that petrochemical industry. So these things are called hazardous waste. From leather industries, chromium bearing residue sludge. Throughout the process of leathering, this chromium extractor in tanning industry should be there. From that, you have to take this hazardous waste and you should keep it safe. Electronic industry, which is an example. From that, you can see spent etching chemicals and solvents. These are the example of electronic industry. Next thing is paper and pulp. These are the hazardous waste from those industry. I have given a small sample here, but if you visit the website, and certain criteria are given for all the industries. What are the hazardous waste developed in those industries? This is what I would like to highlight is schedule 6. The hazardous waste is prohibited to import. From no countries it should reach India. So what are these chemicals? Arsenic, beryllium, mercury, selenium, etc. These chemicals are listed here. They will not give consent for transporting from other countries to India. So this is a flow chart. What is the process in order to import or export hazardous waste as per rules 2016? In India they have given, if you want to transport or import from other country to India, this is the process. You can check either the waste comes under part A of schedule 3. If yes, then you can apply for registration to import MOEF. What is MOEF? Ministry of Environment and Forest. So if it is coming under part B, then you can apply for consent. If it is coming under part D of schedule 3, then you can apply for the MOEF. If not, then do not apply for MOEF, then it is called prohibited. Now, these are some of the examples I have listed number of hazardous waste. How the way you can recycle or reuse that hazardous waste are, example, fly ash. This waste is generated from thermal power plant. Now what they do from fly ash is they create pozzolano cement, that is fly ash cement. How much quantity of waste is reused? That is 200 million tons per annum of thermal power plant industry waste are being reused as fly ash product, fly ash based cement. Blast furnace slag nearly 10 metric ton per annum, MTAs metric ton per annum slag cement. So these are the examples of the hazardous waste. It is being reused as another material and it is being recovered, distillery spent wash, etc. So plastic waste and tire waste are used to burn the kilns. For manufacturing cement, you need the fuel. What kind of fuel they use is they can use plastic, use tires, etc. Instead of disposal, you can reuse these purpose. Now, how to dispose? The way what they highlight here is incineration. Incinerate means burning. What happens inside whatever you keep, it will slowly become into ash. If you keep on providing that heat, it will become ash. So incinerator is one of the disposal method. How you can dispose this is, you can keep it in the incinerator around 900 to 1000 degrees centigrade, it will heat and it will burn. It will create into ash. Now, is ash much harmful? Instead of disposing like this, you can convert it into ash and you can dispose. Do you think even that ash has hazardous character? Yes. Now, there are variety of hazardous waste. What are they? Through chemical treatment, you can treat the hazardous waste. Say for example, lactic acid. If you have some acidic hazardous waste, what you can do? You can add base. If you add base to an acid, what it will happen? It will increase the pH level. Sulfuric acid, you pour water. 100 gram of sulfuric acid, you pour 10 liter of water. So it will turn into base, no? If certain hazardous are very high pH level, you can add base to it and you can neutralize. So hazardous waste, another technology is chemical treatment, neutralization. You can bring base to neutral and acid to neutral. What do you mean by base? Base are certain chemicals where you have pH level 12. pH level more than 7 is called base. Up to 14 or 12 base element, you can add some acid and neutralize to 7. So like that you can do chemical treatment and you can do thermal treatment. Thermal is an example of incineration. Incineration is you are producing heat, no? That is why it is called thermal. Next thing is biological. What do you mean by biological? Biology. You can use some bacteria. Bacteria is biological or not? Yes, virus is biological. Plants have biological activity. So you can use some biological treatment. That is, you can use some bacteria in order to neutralize the hazardous waste. Next thing is physical treatment. Physical treatment is solidification. So this I will explain in that example. Particularly I have some example. In that I will explain it in detail. Solidification, flotation, sedimentation, etc. So with these procedure you can dispose the hazardous waste. Not only thermal heating, you can do chemical, you can do solidification, biological, etc. So first three categories transform the waste to molecular level. What are they? Chemical, thermal, biological treatment. Molecular level means it turns these waste into ash. It turns this waste into molecular level. That is, in atomic level it changes. But the last one is called physical treatment. What do you mean by physical treatment is, it is dumping on some place, dumping on ocean. So it does not change the character. Fourth result in waste of solidification or concentration or volume decrease. Fourth type only used in volume decrease. Now this is an example of incineration. Can you see a chamber here? This chamber, if you put any hazardous waste inside and close, you will burn Finally, you will get ash and they destroy some organic waste. Certain types of incinerator, I am explaining here: liquid injection incinerator, multiple earth furnace, etc. So you have this kind of incinerators where you can burn. Another thing, I have told you biological treatment. No, this is the example of biological treatment. Imagine you are extracting petroleum from crude oil. Where you get the crude oil? From the ocean. No, from ocean you drill with the pipes and you extract the oil. Then you process. During process, the oils might fill in the soil. What happens? That petroleum or crude oil will fill in the soil. Can you do farming or agriculture? Can you do agriculture in that? No. The soil becomes polluted. So how to treat this kind of soil? So this is one of the example. Land farming can be treated with organic waste from the petroleum industry. What organic waste you can do? How to treat? How they will treat is, they will insert a vent well. What do you mean by vent well is, they will provide some pipe deep inside the soil, and then what they do is they inject the air, that means oxygen. If oxygen goes to some soil, so through this the oxygen will be passing at all the areas. Wherever you have oxygen, there bacteria will come. Aerobic bacteria, have you heard this? There are two types of bacteria, no? What are they? Aerobic, anaerobic. What do you mean by aerobic? The bacteria lives in the place of oxygen. If the bacteria is in non-oxygenated place, then it is called anaerobic. So this is one of the treatment where the surface soil is continuously blended with the waste. What you can do? You can supply nutrients. Through this well, you can blow the air. Can you see a fan here? They will blow the air and then they will send the nutrients. Some nutrients if they send, what happens? It enhances the soil and you can use the soil for natural purpose. What are the common approach for solidification is asphalt, plastic, concrete, etc. So these things you can use. There are different ways of disposal. I have given you introduction. So far, what are the types of disposal is underground disposal. Throughout the world, how they are managing hazardous waste is underground disposal. This is a place which is located in United States, waste isolation plot plant. What they will keep here is whatever hazardous waste is there, they will collect and they will store it in a container like this. How do you get nuclear energy? Converting nuclear to electricity. You use uranium. After that waste, what they will do is they will place in this container and then they will dump deep into the earth. So these places are called underground disposal. So this is applicable for solid waste. So hazardous waste can be solid, liquid or gas. Paints are liquid form or solid form? Paints are liquid form. Uranium is what form? Solid form of waste. Certain wastes are gas form. So according to the form, the disposal will be different. The radioactive waste. This is an example. How they dispose radioactive waste is, so they dispose underground. So that this place common people cannot go. Why? Because it is hazardous, it is harmful. So common people cannot go. For what are the things they will dispose in an underground? Radioactive waste, which comes from, where does radioactive materials are used? Not only in nuclear power plant, in lab, experiment. In certain labs they use radioactive element for reactive purpose. Next thing is nuclear fuel, that is nuclear energy. Next thing is radioactive mining. And these are the places they use underground disposal. Now this is a strong and cost effective method when you are comparing with others. In 2022, how much radioactive waste is being dumped? 2.32 million cubic feet. That much of nuclear waste is being dumped under. Now throughout the world, do you think which country has more nuclear power plant? United States. United States have more than 30 plus nuclear power plant. So they have nuclear waste which they will dump in this area. That is why in the United States they have 2.32 million cubic feet of radioactive waste disposed. So this is being disposed in Waste Isolation Pilot Plant WIPP in near Mexico. Next example is landfill disposal. First disposal is underground. Second thing is land. Near the land they will place. So this kind of waste can be liquid waste. So all the liquid hazardous waste, what they do is they make a liner. What is this liner? This liner will not allow the liquid to pass into the soil. So it will not allow to leaching into the ground. So HDPE, high density polyethylene. This will be a plastic material. There they will place this plastic material around this waste. Can you see this container? Hazardous liquid. What they use is they pour all the hazardous waste in a liquid container and then they will place in the land so that it will not harm the environment. On the top also they will have some soil. Why? Because the gas should not get emitted. So they will place some soil in order to prevent. So leak prevention system, wind dispersal control. That means the air pollution will be reduced. So they cost up to 1 million per acre. Last methodology is cost effective. This methodology is costly. Human health are generally not impacted by hazardous waste landfill, and if there is a leak then there will be a problem. Third thing, how they dispose is they dispose deep into the sea. This is not acceptable. Basically, we should not dispose these waste in the sea. What will happen due to this? Does it affect the marine environment? Yes. If you place your hazardous waste in the ground, it contaminates. So in order to avoid contamination in the groundwater, they are depositing in the deep sea, but it is not acceptable. So it should not be done. And treatment of hazardous waste before disposal. Whenever you dispose a hazardous waste, it should be treated. Treatment means, I have told you, if you have strong acid, you have to neutralize, then you have to dispose. You should not dispose the same 2 pH level. It will affect the environment. What happens? This waste will be consumed by the fish and aquatic living beings. Does the aquatic living beings know that this is a hazardous waste? No. They will automatically consume. What these people will do, they will do fishing. They will take the fish from the same sea and we will eat that. So through the food chain, automatically some beings, if they consume that kind of food chain they will have, and we will consume that fish and we will be having that same food chain. That is why we are having new types of diseases. Why? Because these are the things where humans get new types of diseases. So it affects the human. If human consume the seafood, then it affects us also. What are the general waste they do like this is radioactive waste, industrial waste, sludges. All cause considerable pollution. Fourth technique is deep well injection. What do you mean by deep well injection is the industry is producing some hazardous waste. After that they will dig some deep well in the sense they will bore underground below the groundwater level. Naturally groundwater level will be in 800 feet or 1000 feet, 1500 feet, that's all. But they bore below that around 3000 feet. Then they will discharge their hazardous waste deep into the earth. So it will not affect the environment. So this technique is called deep well injection. Can you see the groundwater level here? Below the ground they have groundwater. So it should be drilled deep into the earth, then they should dispose. Can you do solid waste disposal in deep well injection? Solid waste cannot be pumped. What kind of waste you can do this? Liquid waste. Can you do gaseous waste? Soon after you pump it will come out. So only liquid waste can be injected like this. Liquid waste can be cost effective, particularly potential for leak or seismic activity. Now I have told you some disadvantage. Only seismic activity will be there. What is seismic activity? If they are making more number of bores, the underground structure of the earth will get changed. So what happens? The vibration will be so quick and seismic activity will come. What do you mean by seismic is earthquake. In United States, approximately 800 class 1 deep well injections are there. Number of deep wells they have, and annually they discharge all the hazardous waste in the deep inside the ground. Next is surface impoundments. Can you see some liners? Black color. What are this black color is? It is a liner. Liner means it is a bitumen. Above that they will spread the hazardous waste. What happens? Some hazardous waste will be evaporated. So due to evaporation, the hazards will get reduced. So the last solid waste will be taken to the next process. So this is called surface impoundments. So surface impoundments are done by using ponds. Can you see this is a pond? Or you can do pits or lagoons. This is typically used for liquid waste only. Proper lining should be done. What do you mean by lining? This black color lining or the bottom area is called lining in order to prevent groundwater leakage, etc. So to prevent the leachate. Sixth one is called incineration. They take all solid or liquid waste or gas waste, burning hazardous waste, convert into ash, flue gas or heat. So can you see this large container? They will supply the fuel at one side and at another side it will burn and they will take off that ash. So they reduce the volume and control system required dioxins and furans, etc. Now how much degree of heat is produced in incinerator? 1200 degrees centigrade they heat. What happens? All the waste, their molecular structure will get changed. So after heating that, they will place the fly ash in the land. Modern incinerator have scrubbers, filters and electrostatic precipitators. After incinerator, you have gases. This gas will be taken in this kind of scrubbers and filters, etc. Then seventh technique is encapsulation. All radioactive elements are encapsulated. What do you mean by radioactive elements? If you keep radioactive elements in your class, after few days or 10 to 15 days, we will get cancer, skin cancer. Yes or no? Have you heard this? It is radioactive. How to dispose this kind of waste? If you dump into the soil get polluted. If you dump in the sea, the marine environment get polluted. Where to dump? The only procedure is encapsulation. What is encapsulation is? Radioactive elements, they will capsule by solid. That means concrete. What they do is, they pour concrete around that. How many layers they capsule is? Can you see this is a biosphere? What do you mean by biosphere is? It will not get degraded due to natural environment. Inside that you have a container. This is called engineered barrier. Engineered barrier is there will be a metal container. Inside the metal container you have second barrier. Again a small container will be there. Inside that you will be having a HLW in waste form of first barrier. So how many containers you have? 1, 2, 3. For a single radioactive element you have 3 types of container, then they will capsule. This is called capsuling. What do you mean by capsule? You have small cover, no? Inside that you have some medicine. So the same way the hazardous waste are covered with this kind of capsules. So this is called encapsulation. It is enclosed with hazardous waste into solid material. What are the solid material? They can use concrete or plastic. Above the waste they will make concreting. And they can use particularly for solid or semi-solid waste. So not for liquid and gas waste such as sludge and asbestos. They use binding material and they will pour into mold, then it will become hardened, then they will encapsulate this. This method is often used for long-term storage. Macro-encapsulation. What do you mean by macro? Means large. Macro is large. This is called large encapsulation. So in large volumes they use barrels and steel concrete containers. This is a container. Inside the container you will be having this kind of waste. So this is in large form you will be having. This is called macro-encapsulation. This will be used for bulky waste, not small waste. If you have large bulky waste, for that you can use macro containers. They can be used for disintegration with physical and chemical technology. They reduce the volume by this technology. Now, instead of disposal, you can use some other technology. Reclaim means if there is a procedure to make some useful product out of hazardous waste, you have to do. Then if you can reuse and you can make it as another product, that is an industrial ingredient. Or third thing is you can recover by using biofuel for burning. So that for these things you can use. Instead of disposal, there are alternatives. What are the alternatives? You can reuse, reclaim, or burn as a